News Source 13 at 6 with Don Alhart, Chief Meteorologist Bill Peterson, and Mike Catalana on sports.
In just over 2 weeks, I will celebrate a very special anniversary here at WOKR-TV, for it was 30 years ago I began my career as a television journalist here. This week, I'll be sharing recollected highlights of those 3 decades, beginning tonight with the changing face of our community. I remember the day they unpacked the statue of Mercury from the warehouse in Charlotte. It had graced the skyline before and would again atop the Lawyers Co-op building. Oh, the stories he could tell. Looking down on grocery stores like Loblaws and Star Markets, gazing upon Clinton Avenue, where Channel 13's first studios were located.
From Channel 13 first signed on, the very first weather forecast was done by Jerry Carr.
It is the downtown I remember, the old Capitol Theater, one of the last downtown, and Sibley's, the cornerstone. When they closed the bakery, we knew what would follow. It seems somehow fitting to come to this spot to end our story and this broadcast. A spot where many of us as youngsters met our mothers after an hour or so of shopping. And now, a spot to say farewell. This is Don Alhart reporting from under the clock at Sibley's downtown. The days of Sibley's and Edwards and Grant's would pass. National Clothing would close its doors. And the triangle of stores across from Sibley's would give way to a new Liberty Pole. Mocked at first, it would seek and find a level of appreciation. The Xerox Tower would rise, the Lincoln Tower too, First Federal with its revolving restaurant, and Jiva Theater, and the Strong Museum, and the Strassenberg Planetarium. To make way for a new convention center, the Roman-style Security Trust Bank would be sacrificed. The Commerce Building nearby left more quickly. The center would be delayed, problems with steel delivery. But we'd see delays again. Remember the Hyatt? And let's not forget the most recent addition to the skyline, Bausch & Lomb. Access to all of this more quickly as roads improved over the last 3 decades, Route 490 the main reason.
We're going to have to keep up with that interstate system.
And the very highways that would bring us downtown would eventually take us away from the center city. The farmland of Henrietta, so peaceful from the sky, would give birth to Marketplace Mall. We would blow up bridges. And build new ones, and tear down some, like the Irondequoit Bay Bridge, and wait for a new one. But like the statue of Mercury, it too will rise again. Yes, look down with pride from your lofty perch. Though the face is ever-changing, the heart and soul of this community remains. There is indeed no place like home. That's my wife's favorite statue. Yeah. And it just kind of symbolizes all that Rochester is. That was, I was going to say it's nice, I did it, but John Board and Karen Coretta put a lot of that together, and that really is a nice job. Yeah. You've been here half of that.
Half of that, and more to come, right?
Yeah. We're going to take a look tomorrow at some of the people that I remember, and a little bit later on, some of the stories, and eventually some of the people here at Channel 13.
Looking forward to it.
All
started with the weather.
Yes, I was there. Where's a weather bird when you need one?
You had great roots. What happened? Let's take a look at our almanac. The high temperature today, 85 degrees. A low last night was 69.
You're watching News Source 13 at 6 with Don Alhart, Chief Meteorologist Bill Peterson, and Mike Catalana on sports.
30 years with WOKR. Time does pass quickly, and this week I'm looking back over those 3 decades at the wealth of memories I've accumulated. Last night, the changing face of our community. Tonight, just a few of the changing faces that have made our community what it is.
We're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
The first story where I ever used music, and Mrs. Oberdorf was literally rocking around the clock to set a record and raise money for charity. My very first bright spot.
Mrs. Oberdorf doesn't think I can keep up with her. I'm not having too much success, just keeping even with it.
3 decades blends many politicians into one's memory. I think often of Rochester Mayor Frank Lamb. Steve May would be mayor while Republicans held City Hall. John Parinello, noted defense lawyer now, would be vice mayor. Republicans held the strength. Congressman Frank Horton and Barbara Conable flanking Governor Nelson Rockefeller, not an uncommon sight. I recall the day we covered Gerald Ford's airport stop as he campaigned for election.
Thousands of Rochesterians turned out here at the Monroe County Airport this morning to catch a glimpse of the President of the United States.
We would see Republicans and Democrats work together for common good. Tom Ryan, first elected mayor, would establish a bond with the first elected county executive, Lou Morin. I began when Al Skinner was sheriff. His loss to Bill Lombard in 1973 would end 36 years in office. Under Sheriff Andy Maloney would wait and finally run and win the post he still holds today.
Sheriff of the County of Monroe.
I would witness the height of mob influence in our community. Frank Valenti was the kingpin.
We have 2 detectives following my daughters. That's a police force.
Mobsters themselves would struggle for internal control. Sammy Gingella would die in a bomb blast in his own car. The religious community would welcome Bishop Fulton Sheen, television coverage unparalleled. We would see Billy Graham's crusade come to Silver Stadium and mourn the loss of Rabbi Judah Miller, a dedicated spiritual leader. Following the riots of '64, I would see our community struggle for equality. Bill Johnson, now mayor, would work through the Urban League. Connie Mitchell would enter politics to make a difference.
Would you still support the Democratic candidates and renounce your liberal nomination?
No, I will not.
Franklin Florence, Bernie Gifford, Ray Scott would pioneer the local fight organization. Gone now, but not forgotten, my personal trio who became the conscience of our community. Loftus Carson, James McCullert, and Mildred Johnson. We would take pride in hometown celebrities like Foster Brooks and Cab Calloway. And remember the time Elvis Presley came to town and Channel 13's photographer sneaked into the arena in a covered laundry cart to get exclusive footage. And I'll never forget the day Jay Silverheels came to town. Growing up with the Lone Ranger made this interview a special memory, especially the extremes to which I would go for its finale.
You have long rides, Kimasabi.
Eyewitness News!
Oh, gee. You haven't changed in 30 years.
You know, sadly, I look at all of this old footage and I realize I am what I am. Always have been. But,
good.
Some great memories. And we're gonna look ahead tomorrow, some of the events, and that was the toughest part of all, trimming down some of the events, and a little bit later in the week, some of the people here at Channel 13. Maybe we'll even put you in there.
All right, it sounds like a good half-hour show to me. Let's take a look at our high temperature for the day, 72 degrees. Our low last night, 57. Compare that to the averages.
You're watching News Source 13 at 6 with Don Alhart, Chief Meteorologist Bill Peterson, and Mike Catalana on sports.
You know, I hear it quite often. What is the biggest story you ever covered? Not an easy question to answer as I look back this week over my 30 years with this television station. I share but a few tonight of the many I remember the most. Snow. The blizzards of 1966 and 77 brought our community to a standstill. Some of us even resorted to snowmobiles to cover the daily news. When it didn't snow, it rained. The flooding of 1972 from Hurricane Agnes. I recall the sandbagging along the Genesee River and the careful watch along the lakeshore.
The pavement here around the aqua has been torn up by giant waves which have been crashing over the break wall.
Water in yet another form, the ice storm of 1991. A state of emergency has been declared in Monroe and most surrounding counties. It is Rochester's worst ice storm in 3 decades. Water uncontrolled in 1974 when a portion of the Barge Canal collapsed at Bushnell's Basin. I would be among the first to arrive to record these scenes. My camera ready too, the night flames swept through the Allendale School in Brighton. I was the only one to record the historic loss. I shall never forget the numerous deaths in the fire at the Holiday Inn in Greece in 1978.
By mid-morning, the death toll from this overnight fire had climbed to at least 10.
It happened the very night my youngest son was born. And my childhood memories of growing up in Rochester, going up in the smoke of the carousel fire at Seabreeze. We cherish the 4 that remain, the 4 survivors, knowing they'll ride again with future generations in the saddle out of the ashes. The carousel will be back. Other memories somewhat lighter. Always at the zoo to celebrate the birthdays of Jimmy the Chimp and Gambar the Orangutan. But only once at the county fair to challenge a newspaper reporter to an ostrich race. The newspaper won. I remember protests of the Vietnam War and reciting names of local soldiers who died there. I remember the Attica prison riot of 1971. I would find myself alone at times, starting my own movie camera and running around in front of it to record my thoughts.
All is apparently as peaceful on the inside as it is on the outside.
The crimes that put people in prison come quickly to mind. The standoff at a Security Trust Bank in 1981 as a gunman took hostages inside the bank. 1988 and 90, a growing number of city prostitutes being killed until Arthur Shawcross was finally taken into custody, tried, and convicted. More recently, I would watch a community reach out to a little girl from East Rochester who disappeared without a trace 2 years ago tomorrow. The story of Kaylee Ann Polton continues to capture our attention, reminding me of all the stories where a crisis has brought this community together. We'd pray for the safe return of Batavia hostage Terry Anderson. Rally around troops in Desert Storm. And embrace children like little Christy Simonetti. She would not win her battle with cancer, but she won the hearts of this community. And her brave smile and all it represents about life in our community is perhaps the biggest story of all. Great place to live.
Oh, isn't it?
I wonder why I stuck around all these years. We want to look ahead to the weather for us.
Yeah, Don, we are going to see continued fairly decent conditions over the next few days. Now, today we climbed to 69 degrees. 53 was our low last night. We'll remain about there for the next couple of days, and I'll be back to tell you about it.
You're watching News Source 13 at 6 with Don Alhart, Chief Meteorologist Bill Peterson, and Mike Catalana on sports.
Well, this week I have been reflecting upon my 30 years here at Channel 13. We have shared the stories and people I remember over 3 decades. Tonight I conclude with memories of this station and me, still here after all those years. I took you down Clinton Avenue earlier this week, studios downtown, as I joined the Channel 13 News Department in June 1966. Hired by Ray Laws, partnered with photographer Joe Powell and anchorman Dick Burt. Just the 4 of us. After hosting late-night movies, I would try my hand at reporting the weather.
Cold weather is returning. We'll have some snow flurry activity.
Co-workers over the years, most always good friends. Tom Wells, George Bain, and of course, Ron DeFrance. I remember the night Muhammad Ali stopped by for a live broadcast.
He and I don't get along.
Yeah, I know you don't.
Seriously, we don't get along no kind of way.
Dick Burt, my most lasting partner and friend. Dick and I would work together for more than 20 of my 30 years, and I would always cherish the times we giggled just a bit.
In fact, that's just what happened. He went off, the horses shied. And
It's 12:30. Well, tell us what happened anyway. We gotta get the end of this down. The horses shied.
Yes, and
he fell off.
He fell off, and the horses kicked him.
Well, finally,
Sorry about that. Well, I thought we were going to... Go ahead. After 25 years, you'd think we'd be a little smoother.
Right.
Time?
Time to go. Say goodnight, Dick.
Good night, Dick.
Our final newscast together is still fresh in my mind, as if I had assumed a mantle of responsibility to carry on the lessons of good journalism he taught so well.
It's been a perfectly marvelous 25 years.
Personal memories come quickly to mind. The emotional high of Friday's Child, seeking adoptive homes for children through weekly vignettes. Using my youngest son, now a teenager, for a Christmas special.
What's Friday's Child?
I remember retracing the steps of author Arch Merrill to Gold, Pennsylvania, the very start of the Genesee River. How wonderful to watch the waters grow and flow into Lake Ontario. Morning Break provided the chance to reach out into this community.
Live from Marketplace Mall, Morning Break with...
And my partnership with Wanda Miller was a natural friendship, which I still hold dear. The day we took a dozen busloads of extras to Buffalo to meet Robert Redford in the pouring rain as he filmed The Natural is a night I'll never forget.
Oh, Robert Redford, thank you.
Good people all around me, to this very day. That's why you stay where you do. Mike and Jenny and Bill Peterson. Who can ever forget the night we tickled his funny bone all the way through his forecast?
Our humidity is at 74%, which in the west is at 33. I can feel the job just slipping away right now.
My wife Mary has supported this journey most of all. I even enlisted her help for 10 years to co-host the Weekend with the Stars telethon for cerebral palsy. Our family grew up on that annual program, and I grew too. My life has been enriched by those I work with every day. No one can ask more than to love what they do and respect those who help them do it. My vocation and family are my life. And like that Friday's Child special years ago, I end each day with thanks and look forward to the next.
Good night, son.
It's been a great 30 years, Donald. Great 30 years.
John Borden and Karen Coretta, who put all of that together. I wish I had a chance to see it before we put it on. Very nice. Nice job. Nice job.
Fantastic job. Let's work on the next 30 now.
Okay, that's
all right. Let's take a look at our weather. Our high temperature today was, in fact, 73 degrees. That after a low last night of 49.